Wight County School Board's in session. Madam Clerk, take the roll, please.
Mr. Wooster, Mr. Colick,
Present.
Mrs. Perkins, here, Mr. Cunningham,
Present.
and Mr. Marsh.
Here.
Mr. Chair, I move to amend the agenda for closed session to add a personnel report and approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Colick,
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins, yes, Mr. Cunningham,
Yay.
and Mr. Marsh.
Yes. Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I move to amend the agenda for open session to add the approval of the personnel report under action on closed session items and to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
First and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Colick,
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins, yes, Mr. Cunningham,
Yay.
and Mr. Marsh.
Yes. Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I move to go into closed session to review the personnel report posted on board docs on the personnel tab number 11.2 as authorized by Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1 for the purpose of discussion and consideration of prospective candidates of Isle of Wight Public Schools for employment, contract changes, transfers, salary adjustments, supplemental contracts, deletions, supplemental pay, resignations of Isle of Wight County School employees, and I move to go into a closed session to review the FY 2025 personnel roster posted on board docs under Personnel tab 11.1 as authorized by Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1 for the purposes of discussion and consideration of prospective candidates of the Isle of Wight County Schools for employment.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Colick,
Yes.
sorry, Mrs. Perkins, yes, Mr. Cunningham,
Yay.
Mr. Marsh.
Yay. Motion passes. Wight County School Board's back in session.
Mr. Chair, I move that the closed meeting was conducted in conformity with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as required by Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia, and certified that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements were discussed, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Colick,
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins,
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham,
Yay.
and Mr. Marsh.
Yes. Motion passes. Would one of you gentlemen lead us in the moment of silence and the pledge?
Moment of silence. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, good evening, everybody. It's Tuesday, May 28, 2024, and we are at Westside Elementary School, Smithfield, Virginia. And a special meeting tonight. I think we're just going to, Dr. Kramer wants to jump right in here to item 10.1, pay scales. But if you or our esteemed finance department could give us a quick synopsis on where we are with the budget cycle. I know we had to amend the agenda for tonight. So.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And as you stated, our CFO, Mrs. DeVere, our interim CFO, Mr. Jenkins, and certainly our Director of Human Resources, Mrs. Sullivan, is here, and they are prepared to respond to any questions the board might have.
Where we are currently is we are waiting for the calc tool to be updated by the state. It still hasn't been, but we were told it should be sometime this week. So once we have that, we will be able to, and also incorporate what the Board of Supervisors has approved to be able to give you a complete update at your next meeting in 2 weeks, I think it is.
Thank you, ma'am. It's just for the listening audience. I'm sure there's a handful of people watching. What is the calc tool that we're waiting on?
The calc tool is the way the state allocates the money they're going to give to all the schools. So, and it'll be breaking it down by the different, areas.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Any comments from the board before we move on?
And if I can add, the state has approved the budget, so we were awaiting that, I think, at our previous board meeting. So as Mrs. DeVere stated, both the county and now the General Assembly and the governor has signed the budget. So we're waiting for the calc tool to basically inform us as to the allocation of those funds. And as she stated, we should have that fairly soon, and we will provide the board with an update. Our next scheduled board meeting is June 13th, I think it is. So we will provide you with more information at that time, and we do expect that we'll have the information by that time.
So in other words, the state's approved the budget. The supervisors at the county have given us a number. We're just waiting for the folks in Richmond to give us the specific numbers so we, as a school board, can finalize our budget.
That is correct, sir.
Excellent. Over to you, ma'am. Pay scales?
Yes, so I'll take over from there. So, businesses needs to carry on while we're waiting for that exact number from the state. And so in working with finance, able to, at this time, able to approve a 3% increase on all of the 3 pay scales. So the teacher, the admin, and the support staff pay scale that were in place as of January 1, 2024. So another 3% increase on those. Just of note, it is a 3% increase and then an adjustment to this scale. At this time, there is not a step included with that 3%. So it's a 3% on the current year's pay, but the year of experience will increase so that that's documented of that extra year of experience. And step 0 for next school year for our teacher pay is starting out at $50,500. Additionally, we broke out a clinician pay scale for this year. That was another budget priority that finance has been able to run the numbers and see that we're able to do. So the clinician pay scale is a new separate pay scale that is included as well in that. And then lastly, we have the supplemental pay scale on those last 2 pages. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
So in the grand scheme of things, aside from the clinician pay scale, we just went across the board and added the 3%.
Correct.
And Ms. Sullivan, as far as the clinicians go, this makes us more competitive now with our neighbors.
Yes.
So when you consider maybe we're not getting exactly how, the amount that others are getting, the atmosphere within our schools will certainly help with that.
Yes.
So-
And these particular positions as well, in looking at contracting those out, if we were not to have those filled,
Yeah.
it would cost us double, if not triple, than what we are paying as a salary for those individuals because the contracting fee is so high.
Absolutely. So I want to thank the 3 of you for working those numbers so hard and getting them so we can pay these great people, what they're worth.
One I have to say, Ms. Magner, our Director of Special Education, was integral in helping with the research development of and advocating for that pay scale. So I definitely want to give her due.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As a curiosity, are most of our clinicians on the 200-day or 240-day?
It's a mixture. So we have at least one of them in each area, except for speech, that is 12, and that's so that we can maintain meeting compliance over the summer, because we still continue to have special education meetings in July and August, and so we keep one of those on staff in that particular area to make sure that they are available for not only the meetings but also the testing that has to keep happening to stay in compliance. With the speech pathologist, we don't have anyone on that 12-month, and so but we would work with them to pay them on a timesheet if needed for that service.
Ms. Sullivan, on the clinician pay scale, can you give us a few examples? Because it's just a generic pay scale. So what could be some examples of clinicians?
So school psychologist, social workers, speech language pathologist, occupational therapist.
And these are all positions, and I know we've already talked about this, but these are positions that we're required to have on the roster if one or more students requires those services.
Yes.
Right.
We have to provide those services with a staff member who's qualified, yes.
And then I noticed on the last 2 pages under supplements, there's a couple of red ones. These are new from last year?
So actually, there were 2 positions that have been on the supplemental pay scale, or have been on the supplemental. They've been a supplemental position for at least 3, if not 4 years, but they were never on the pay scale. And so in a review of that this year, I saw that they were not on this pay scale, so we added those on here. But our budget has been sufficient to include those 2 positions. We've been paying someone to do that role, actually 3 people, because 1 flag each at the high school and then 1 rifle at the high school, at Smithfield High School, for the last 3 years. So that was on there. These positions were in there before I arrived in this position, and so in a review of those payouts this year, realized that they were not included on this.
Appreciate you drawing attention to that. You good? Good? No rush. Take your time.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the FY 2025 pay scales as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Colick,
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins,
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham,
Yay.
and Mr. Marsh.
Yes. Motion passes. And our last one, Mr. Colick.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the FY 2025 personnel roster and the personnel report as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none.
Mr. Colick,
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins,
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham,
Yay.
and Mr. Marsh.
Yes. Motion passes. Any final comments before we get out of here?
Just want to thank everyone for your hard work.
Yep.
I would like to echo that. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, including Mrs. Magner. And I want to thank you, board members, as well, for taking the time out of your schedules to vote this evening. So thank you all as well.
All right. I echo that. Good night.